Tharpe is?
Only because you sent me something. So no.
Okay. Rosetta Newbin was born March 20th, 1915 in Cotton Plant, Arkansas. Her parents were cotton farmers, sharecroppers. Her mother, they were both really into their church. They were Baptists. And their church was, I had to look, the Church of God in Christ. So COGIC.
Okay.
Both of the parents were really into it, but the mother especially was a good preacher. It was a case where actually they let women preach and they let women lead things.
All right.
They were the parents just didn't get along. So mom took her and her daughter to Chicago, and then they started a church there. And then Rosetta started playing guitar and singing, and it turns out she had perfect pitch. She had a fabulous voice, and she could do things with a guitar that they thought was like God-centered. Like she just had an otherworldly ability. So she gets married very young. A couple of years in, she's like, I don't like, this guy's an asshole, but his last name was Thorpe. So she kept Tharpe, excuse me. So she kept his last name. And she and her mom are like, we're a couple of single gals. Let's go to New York. They moved to New York. I'm not kidding. And then Rosetta starts playing in churches every Sunday. And she has this unbelievable voice. She's one of those people, like, I would go to church if this was the presentation every week. If this was like, I would get up early. I'll wear a nice outfit. I'll wear pantyhose and everything. If I can.
That's how I feel about Sister Act, by the way. When I watch Sister Act, I'm like, if that was church, I would totally go.
Absolutely. Go in my Sunday finest. I'd have a hat and everything. I'll do whatever you tell me, because this is the entertainment. Awesome. That's a fair break for me. She starts recording. She does this during the day, and then during the week, she starts going to the jazz clubs. And then everybody starts going to the jazz clubs because there's this woman who can sing like an angel, and she's just a badass on the guitar. And she did this thing where she put distortion on the guitar, which was different than what anybody else did.
Yes.
And it's like what Sonic Youth and all this, like we hear nowadays. Like she began that, and we're talking like 1930s.
That is so cool.
She is so fucking cool. She released a record in 1944, Strange Things Happening Every Day, and it was with Sammy Price. There was a boogie woogie pianist, and then she had her guitar solo. It's considered by some people to be the first rock and roll song ever. She combined gospel. She was huge in gospel, country, and the blues, and she mixed it together. 10 years before Elvis, 10 years before Chuck Berry. Everybody. This is even for Ike Turner.
Never heard of her.
Never heard of her. So I used to take guitar lessons, and I would go to rock camp for women, Willie Mae Rock Camp, and we learned about her. Her abilities, she would do guitar solos that would just like make you scream. Like she had such this presence. She loved an audience. She made eye contact with people. She made it feel like you were special. Like you just like, she was there just for you. And she was so happy to see you. She's huge. She has a lot of affairs with men and women and doesn't care if anybody's got a problem with it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Go for it.
She has a great like sex life. She has one girlfriend, Marie Knight, and they start touring together. Also, by the way, she's beautiful. She's like super tall, beautiful smile. She would go on stage in fur. She would go on stage like all decked out and then just whip out a guitar and just jam.
Nice.
It's like, and people would lose their goddamn minds. Like, you'd see only men on stage, playing the back of it, and they would just stare at her like, oh my God, this is incredible. So she and her girlfriend, Marie Knight, left their husbands for each other and started traveling. And then they got really popular. And then there's this folk music that happens in the 50s. And they start becoming friends with folk musicians. And the folk musicians were totally into grassroots, gospel music. So they kind of had this second wind in the 50s. And America at this time, it's post-war, very racially divided. Not like today where it's all great, but...
Right.
Yeah. There's a couple of bands. I was watching this documentary, and there's this band that they didn't, it was a bunch of white boys. I can't remember their name. They were a folk group that was really popular, and they were touring with them. And the first time they saw somebody with a bus with their name on it was Loretta Thorpe's, and it was just in big letters. And then he said he couldn't figure out why there were all these 3 beds in the back. And that's when he toured with them, he realized they would go to places where they had no hotels for people who were Black. So they had to sleep on the bus. They had places where they couldn't have dinner. They had places where they couldn't go through the front door for the hotel.
So fucked up. It's like, entertain us. But no, you can't sleep here or eat here.
Or eat here. We don't want to see you. Like, you go through the back door. There's a different entrance for you than everybody else. And these women would play. They would just tour together. And they both had, like, this. They were both played piano. They both could sing. Their relationship's kind of on and off, like these things can be. And they break up. And then Loretta marries, Sister Rosetta. She marries her manager. And then, not a great guy. Kind of took advantage of her. She stayed married to him, but they kind of had a deal. Like, she went with her mom and he went on with his life. 1964, Bob Dylan is becoming really popular around the world. It's just before he goes electric. He's the biggest folk star ever. People are always asking him, who are your heroes? And he says, Woody Guthrie. And he would always mention Sister Rosetta Tharpe. I keep saying Loretta, it's Rosetta. And nobody ever mentions her because she's a Black woman. And and it's an industry that, like, didn't even consider rap music in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, like, maybe 10 years ago, they thought, like, well, maybe this is important. She never got her due, but Bob Dylan would tell everybody, buy her records, listen to her music. And so her music started selling like crazy. She was rich. Just music is just selling. And there's this group of guys touring through England, and all these kids are starving for this music. You know, it's the first generation after World War II. And there's this very famous film where they take a train, a bunch of musicians, to Manchester, and they're at a Manchester train station, and the audience is on one side and the band is on the other, and like a train goes through. She looks at this like, what kind of setup is this shit? But they're like, no, we got something for you. And they get her in a horse and carriage, and she comes out and with a fur coat. And then she goes on the stage and just starts playing, and these people lose their goddamn minds. That's awesome. And this all exists. You could see this for yourself. Go to YouTube. You'll find tons of clips of her. People like study her voice and just how she sang, and it was just so beautiful. She lost her mom when she was like 54, 55, and that kind of really broke her heart. She had diabetes, which she never really treated. And Rosetta lost her. She thought she was like had a foot problem. There was like a black spot on her foot. Yeah. This happened to my grandmother. They had to amputate her foot, and then it was her leg. And she passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 58, 1973, in Philadelphia. Philadelphia was actually the town she kind of adopted for herself. And she was actually finally put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018 as an early influence. And that's our non-creep this week. Look her up. Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Really, really good one.
A Christian?
I'm definitely going to look her up.
She's so badass and sang gospel music. Believed in God, didn't have any problem talking about God and all that stuff, but she also just lived her own life, and she didn't judge people. And you could be religious and have a relationship with God and not be a creep. And not involve my shit with it. Right. Exactly. I'm proud of this one.
Good pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should. This is a really, really good one. And I suspect a lot of our listeners have never heard of her before. I know I had never heard of her, so you just introduced her to a whole new group of people. That's rad.
I'll put some clips in the Facebook group and y'all can see for yourselves, but she's pretty amazing. Well, what's also amazing, that's my transition, y'all. Sonia. If they like the sound of our voices, we co-host another podcast, don't we?
We do? Yes, we do. We co-host a podcast called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. And we got a request, I think, in the What a Creep group for this movie. Yes, they did.
In our Facebook group, there's a lot of dorking out people that hang out there. We're going to be doing License to Drive.
Yes, it's going to be so fun.
Classic starring the Coreys and Heather Graham. and starring a fantastic song by Billy Ocean. I can't wait to
Get out of my dreams.
Get into my
car. Oh, yeah.
Hey, you. Get out of my
Who,
dreams.
me?
Who, me?
Yeah, you. Get into my car.
I'm going to listen to that. So that's going to be dropping. We'll also, like I said before about Patreon, we're going to drop another bonus episode soon. Please like and review wherever you get your podcast. We totally appreciate that. Send us an email. We also look for requests for creeps and also non-creeps, because sometimes we have a hard time finding somebody who's a non-creep. You can reach out to us on all the social media places. We love it when you use the Annie Potts GIF. We got one from Ghostbusters. Or be clever and pick something of your own. If you like some stickers, remember, send us an email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. Where can people find you, Margot?
You can find me on social media at Brooklyn Fit Chick for Twitter and Instagram. And my site is brooklynfitchick.com. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with a new creep. In the meantime, be safe. Enjoy the spring, but be safe.
Yes.
And don't be a creep.
Creep.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.